There's something no one tells you about growing older. Not in books, not in birthday speeches, not even in the soft whispers of well-meaning friends. They celebrate your wisdom. They mention your strength. They may even envy your freedom. But no one warns you about the silence that comes, not the comforting kind, but the kind that echoes in places you didn't expect, in the phone that doesn't ring as often, in the chair beside you that no one occupies anymore, in the long stretch of afternoon where once there was purpose. Have you felt it, that slow shift, not a sudden event, but a quiet unfolding? A season of life when things don't fall apart, they simply drift away. After 80, the world doesn't always get louder. It gets quieter, not just around you, but inside you too. The rush settles. The urgency fades. But in that stillness, something else rises. Not fear, not despair. Truth. And truth, when it arrives this late in life, doesn't knock. It simply sits beside you one evening and says, "This is how it really is." Some people call that loneliness. Others call it clarity. It depends on whether you fight it or sit with it. Maybe you've felt the tension between what people expect this chapter to look like. Peaceful, grateful, full of wisdom, and what it actually feels like on some days. Empty, confusing, uncertain. Some will nod their heads, agreeing with every word, because they've lived it. Others might resist. That's too dark. Aging is beautiful, and it is. But beauty doesn't mean ease, and even in the most sacred moments, sorrow has a seat at the table. This isn't a story about loss. It's a story about presence, about what remains when life stops being noisy, about the quiet truths we inherit after 80 that no one ever warned us about. Because here's the thing, if you're lucky enough to live this long, you will lose some things, but you'll also find things you never expected. A strange strength that comes not from doing, but from simply being. A sharper awareness of what truly matters. A softer courage, the kind that doesn't need applause. And no, this isn't the ending. It's the deep middle. The part of the story where every small act means more, not less. Tonight we walk together into this quiet season, not to retreat from it, but to greet it fully. Not to fight it, but to understand it. Not to mourn what's fading, but to gently hold what remains. You don't need to resist this chapter. You simply need to show up for it, with honesty, with kindness, with presence. So take a deep breath. Let's begin. 1. The disappearing circle. There comes a time when your mornings begin with a stillness that's no longer just peaceful. It's unfamiliar. You wake up, shuffle into the kitchen, prepare your cup of coffee just the way you like it, and sit quietly in the same chair you've sat in for years. And then you wait, out of habit, more than hope, for a phone to ring, for a neighbor to knock, for someone to remember. But some mornings stay silent. It doesn't happen all at once, this quiet drifting. No, it's more like a slow tide pulling away from the shore. Friends who used to call every Sunday now call once a season. A lunch partner moves to another state to be closer to her grandchildren. Someone stops driving. Someone else simply disappears without goodbye, because age carries its own kind of vanishing. I once knew an elderly man named Walter. He was 84 and had the kind of ritual many of us cherish. He'd go to the same cafe every morning, rain or shine. He'd sit in the corner booth, order his coffee black with a small apple turnover, and wait for the usual faces to show up. For years it was a tradition. They didn't need to text or plan. They just knew. But slowly, one by one, the chairs across from him stayed empty. Some passed away. Some moved to assisted living. Others simply stopped making the drive. And one morning, Walter said to me, "It's strange to walk into a place where everyone used to know your name, and now you're just the man in the corner booth." That struck me deeply. because it wasn't bitterness I heard, it was bewilderment. He wasn't angry, he was just trying to understand where everyone had gone. He was still here, still breathing, still hoping, and yet the world had turned, gently but unmistakably, away from him. Have you ever felt that way? Like the people who once filled your life with laughter, arguments, stories, and shared silences have all begun to step back. Not out of malice, but out of life's own momentum. The Buddha once said, "All conditioned things are impermanent." In other words, everything changes. Friends, families, bodies, seasons. But that doesn't mean we stop needing connection. It simply means we must become more intentional in seeking it. Just because companionship no longer knocks on your door doesn't mean it isn't still out there, waiting to be welcomed in. I know a woman, Lena, who after losing her husband at 82, fell into a rhythm of isolation. Not depression exactly, just a kind of numb quiet. But one day she decided to walk into the local library and volunteer to read to children, just once a week, just for an hour. And in that hour, something shifted. The laughter of a child, the gratitude of a young parent, the simple joy of being seen. It didn't erase her loneliness, but it softened it. Connection after 80 doesn't come the way it used to. It doesn't arrive with spontaneity or ease. It comes through effort, and sometimes even vulnerability, but it comes. It might be a new friend in your building, a handwritten letter to a niece, a Sunday visit to a local gathering, or a call you initiate. Even if your voice shakes with hesitation, and yes, it may not be returned. Not always, but every seed you plant has the chance to bloom. So here's a question worth pausing for. If your circle is shrinking, what new door can you open, however small, that invites someone in? Not someone to replace what's been lost, but someone to remind you that love is never too old to return. In Buddhism, we are reminded to turn toward reality, not away from it, to see clearly, even if it hurts, and then, having seen it, to respond with compassion. That includes compassion for ourselves in this very moment, feeling the ache of what once was, and compassion for those we still have time to reach. As we leave this part of the path, let us carry this gentle truth with us. Your voice still matters, your presence still matters, and there is always room to begin again, even if your beginning happens in the quietest part of the journey. And now, from this quiet realization of fading circles, we take the next step forward toward another truth that waits patiently for us to see it, the body that no longer bounces back the way it once did. 2. The body that no longer bounces back. You might not remember the exact moment it changed, but you remember the feeling. A stumble that once meant a scraped knee now leads to a lingering ache in your hip. A cold that used to pass in 2 days now stretches into a week, leaving behind a fatigue that clings to your bones. The bounce back isn't there anymore. Not the way it used to be. No one tells you that one day your body would stop whispering and start speaking loudly, even sternly. It no longer shrugs off your habits. It no longer forgives a missed night of sleep or an extra slice of pie or that forgotten water glass. The recovery that once felt inevitable, just rest and you'll be fine, now feels uncertain. You wake up one morning and realize healing has become its own slow ritual. And yet, strangely, the slowness invites awareness. There's an old Zen story about a monk who walked barefoot across mountain paths for decades. When asked why he never chose sandals, he smiled and said, "Because the stones teach me where to place my feet." That, in essence, is what the aging body begins to teach, not just that we must move more carefully, but that we must live more carefully. Every step becomes a choice, every motion a chance to listen. I remember Gloria, an 81-year-old widow who prided herself on her independence. She loved working in her garden, clipping roses with steady hands, hosting her book club with tea and laughter. One sunny afternoon, while trimming a climbing rose, she lost her footing. The fall itself wasn't dramatic. No broken bones, no blood, just a bruised thigh and a shaken spirit. But what followed was unexpected. Days of rest turned into weeks. The energy didn't return the same way. The stairs seemed steeper, the garden less inviting. When I visited her a month later, she said softly, "I thought I was just taking a break, but my body treated it like retirement." And I understood. What she was mourning wasn't just strength, it was certainty. The knowing that her body would always catch her if she pushed too far. There's a hidden grief in that realization, isn't there? That your body, once so reliable, is now asking you to slow down. Not as punishment, but as protection. It's not weakness, it's wisdom, spoken through joints and breath and balance. Buddhism teaches us to observe the body not with judgment, but with presence. The Buddha himself grew old. He walked with pain, he experienced illness, and yet he never cursed the body. He regarded it as a vessel, not permanent, not perfect, but sacred in its impermanence. A teacher that shows us how to let go. So perhaps the question is not, why doesn't my body bounce back anymore? Perhaps the better question is, how can I honor the energy I have today instead of mourning the energy I've lost? Because when you begin to move with intention rather than speed, when you rest with awareness rather than guilt, a new kind of strength quietly begins to emerge. You begin to see that vitality is not always about power, but about peace, about knowing when to push and when to pause, when to stretch and when to simply breathe. And when you treat your health not as a given, but as a daily act of reverence, something profound happens. You stop resenting your body for aging and start thanking it for carrying you this far. So the next time you sit down after a long walk, or wake with a stiffness that lingers, instead of thinking, "What's wrong with me?" maybe offer yourself a gentle, honest thought. I am still here, and I am still learning how to walk this path with care. And as we walk that path, slowly and with steady breath, we encounter the next truth that gently arrives with age. Not about muscles or joints, but about the quiet ways we begin to need others more than we'd like to admit. 3. The quiet arrival of dependence. There's a moment, not dramatic, not announced, when you notice you're holding the handrail just a little tighter than before. It might happen while reaching for a high shelf, or while twisting open a stubborn jar. It's subtle, almost forgettable, but it marks the beginning of a quiet shift. Your relationship with help. No one likes to admit it, especially not those who've spent a lifetime holding others up. You may have raised children, supported a spouse through illness, juggled responsibilities with strength that few ever saw. You might still carry yourself with poise and pride, but beneath that self-reliance, something new begins to stir, a discomfort you don't speak about, a hesitation, a flicker of doubt. Can I still do this on my own? There was a man I once knew, Eugene. He was 85, a retired builder, a father of 4, and the kind of man who could fix a fence with one hand and hold a grandchild in the other. He had lived through war and raised a family with grit and love. But one winter morning, while stepping out to shovel snow, he slipped. No major injuries, just bruised ribs and, more painfully, bruised pride. He didn't tell anyone, not at first. He sat with it, alone in the quiet house, frustrated that his body had betrayed him. But his daughter noticed. She began stopping by once a week, saying it was just to drop off groceries. They'd have coffee, talk about the weather, and over time, The ritual softened him. One snowy afternoon, he looked up from his cup and said, almost with a laugh, "You know, it's nice not having to carry everything myself." That, right there, is a moment of awakening, not because he gave up, but because he let go of the illusion that independence means doing everything alone. Buddhist wisdom teaches that all things are interdependent. Nothing, not a tree, not a breath, not even the sun, exists by itself. The Buddha said, just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so should one cultivate boundless love toward all beings. But what he didn't often need to say, because it was understood, is that receiving love is just as vital as offering it. In truth, accepting help is not a burden to others. It is a gift to the relationship. When you allow someone to support you, you give them the chance to care, to show up, to offer something meaningful. And in return, you receive something that is not just practical, but deeply human: connection. And help doesn't always come wrapped in human hands. Sometimes it's the grab bar in your shower, the small stool in your kitchen, the gentle reminder on your fridge. These little adjustments are not signs of defeat. They are tools of wisdom. They say, I want to keep living fully, and I'm willing to change how I do it. So if you've caught yourself thinking, I don't want to bother anyone, pause and ask instead, would I feel burdened if someone I loved asked me for help? Probably not. In fact, you'd likely feel honored. The hardest part of aging, sometimes, isn't the physical change. It's the emotional reckoning, the shift from giver to receiver, from caretaker to cared for. But here's a quiet truth. Both roles are sacred, and perhaps even more sacred is the courage to move between them with grace. As we continue this journey together, with hands sometimes held and steps sometimes wobbly, we come to a more invisible shift, not in our bones or routines, but in how the world begins to look at us, or more often, how it starts to look past us. 4. When the world stops seeing you, there's a particular kind of silence that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being overlooked. You're standing in line at the pharmacy. The young cashier scans the line, and her eyes slide right past you to the person behind. You're sitting in a doctor's office describing a symptom, and the physician begins addressing your son or daughter instead of you, as if your own words have stopped counting. Or perhaps it's at a restaurant where the server repeats everything twice, slowly and loudly, though you've heard perfectly fine all your life. No one shouts, "You don't matter," but somehow the message arrives anyway. It's subtle, not always cruel, just careless. A world in a hurry forgets the ones who've learned to walk slowly. A culture obsessed with productivity forgets the wisdom of simply being. And over time, if you're not careful, you start to internalize it. You begin to shrink, not because you've become less, but because the world has stopped looking. I think of Irene, a woman I met in her late 80s. She had lived through world wars, seen revolutions of technology, and raised 3 generations. Once a school teacher, then a museum docent, she knew more about the local history than any textbook ever could. But one afternoon, as she was arranging an exhibit at the museum, a visitor turned to a younger staff member and asked about a piece from the 1940s. Irene had lived through it. She could have answered it without blinking, but the question skipped over her like she wasn't even there. When I asked how she felt, she smiled and said, "Oh, I'm used to it." But her eyes, those gentle, weathered eyes, told another story, one of quiet sorrow, not for herself, but for a world that was forgetting the very people who carried its memory. Have you ever felt that? That despite all you've lived through, love and loss, work and sacrifice, moments of unspeakable grace and pain, you've somehow become background. The Buddha once reminded his followers, "With our thoughts we make the world." And perhaps today, we must add, with our attention, we shape the soul of that world. To be seen is to be affirmed. And when we're no longer seen, something inside begins to dim, not because it must, but because we forget to shine from within. But here's a truth I offer you, softly and sincerely: you are not furniture. You are fire. Just because the world forgets doesn't mean you must. Just because you're not called on doesn't mean you should fall silent. There is power in your presence, whether others recognize it or not. You still have a voice. Use it. Tell the stories no one asked to hear. Vote. Write. Teach. Speak your opinions at the dinner table, even if no one agrees. And when someone talks past you, look them in the eye. Smile, perhaps. But be there fully. Your presence alone changes the shape of the moment. In Buddhism, we speak of sati, mindfulness, not just as awareness of breath or body, but awareness of our inherent dignity. To walk with presence, even in a world that looks away, is an act of spiritual defiance, a form of compassion turned inward. So ask yourself gently, when did I last let myself be seen, not for approval, but as an offering, not demanding attention, but simply refusing to disappear? Because as long as you draw breath, you carry the flame of experience, of story, of sacred witness. And even if no one else pauses to hear you, you can still hear yourself. You can still shine. And as you do, the path opens again. This time, not through the gaze of others, but through your own. Yet in that very gaze, in that long inward look, something else may rise. Something tender, perhaps even difficult. The regrets, the moments unspoken, the chances not taken. The question lingers quietly at the edge of night. What happens when the noise dies down and the only voice left is your own memory? 5. When silence grows heavy with regret. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from the world going quiet. It comes from the past returning. After the children have gone home, after the visits end, after the sun has slipped behind the curtain of evening, what remains is not always peace. Sometimes what remains are the voices of unfinished moments, not out loud, but in your chest, in the still room, in the long stretch between dinner and bedtime. That's when they come. Why didn't I say yes to that trip? Why didn't I call her back? What would have happened if I'd followed that dream instead of playing it safe? These thoughts don't shout, they whisper. But the whispers don't go away. And at this stage of life, when the noise of busyness has faded and there's space, so much space, they grow louder. You find yourself replaying decisions you made 20, 30, 50 years ago, not always with bitterness, sometimes just with longing or sadness or curiosity about what might have been. There's a Zen parable I often return to when these feelings arise. It tells of a monk who carried a heavy bag through the mountains for hours. When he arrived at his destination, he sighed and set it down. A young novice asked, "Master, why did you carry the bag so far when you could have asked for help?" The monk smiled and replied, "I didn't know how heavy it was until I let it go." Isn't that what regret is? A bag we carry, not knowing its weight, until we pause long enough to notice the ache in our back. But here's the wisdom Buddhism offers, gently and without judgment. Regret is not punishment, it's invitation. It is a doorway, not into guilt, but into greater presence, into choice. Because what you regret most often points to what you still value, and what you value can still be lived. Take Stanley, for example. He was 88, a retired teacher who had spent 4 decades shaping young minds. After retiring, He told me something that stopped me in my tracks. I feel like no one needs me anymore. It wasn't dramatic, just quietly devastating. But over time, something shifted. He started attending local community events, not to teach, but to listen. And eventually, he began offering wisdom during the open discussions. His presence started to matter again, not in the way it once had, but in a new, quieter way. That's the secret many people miss. Purpose doesn't retire, it transforms. You may no longer solve big problems, but you can soften someone's loneliness with your attention. You may no longer build with your hands, but you can build warmth with your presence. You may no longer have a job to show up to, but your life remains a place of work, inner work, quiet work, deep, meaningful work. Regret becomes suffering only when we confuse it with finality. But if you breathe into it, look it in the eye, and ask it what it wants to teach you, something unexpected can emerge. Compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. You can begin again, not from the beginning, but from where you are, with what you have. As the Buddha taught, each morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. So what if, just for a moment, you forgave yourself? What if you turned your regret into kindness, your sorrow into understanding, your memory into fuel, not to go back, but to go forward? Because even now, there is still time, not for everything, but for something. And often that something is enough. And so, from the echoes of what might have been, we gently turn toward what still can be. Not in terms of productivity or ambition, but in something even more essential, purpose, the deep and quiet sense that you still matter, not because of what you do, but because of how you are. 6. The redefinition of purpose. After a lifetime of waking with urgency, jobs to do, people to care for, tasks to complete, there comes a morning when the calendar is mostly blank. The alarm clock becomes unnecessary. No one is waiting for your reply. The house is still, and the question arises softly, almost imperceptibly at first, but louder as the days go on. Now what? It isn't that you've stopped being valuable, it's just that the world, in its relentless pace, no longer defines your value the way it once did. You're no longer measured by what you produce, how much you earn, or the titles you carry. And for many, that absence of external identity can feel like drifting in a boat without an oar. But purpose, true purpose, was never about titles or to-do lists. It was never about being needed in the practical sense. It was always at its heart about meaning, about presence, about how you showed up, not just what you accomplished. I knew a man named Stanley, perhaps I've mentioned him, a teacher for over 40 years, beloved by generations of students. After he retired, he fell into what many might mistake for depression, though he never called it that. He said, "I wake up and no one needs me." Those 6 words held the weight of a man who had once shaped lives daily and now felt like he was floating through his own. But something small began to change. One afternoon, Stanley noticed a group of teenagers loitering near the bus stop outside his home. At first, he muttered to himself and kept the curtains drawn. But one day, he decided to step outside. He brought a pitcher of lemonade. No grand agenda, no lecture, just kindness. That single gesture led to a conversation. Then another. Eventually, Stanley began hosting Saturday story hours on his porch, not for fame or recognition, but because he realized something profound. He hadn't lost his purpose. It had simply changed shape. You see, Buddhism teaches us that form is emptiness, and emptiness is form, that what we cling to as fixed is in truth always shifting. Your purpose is not static. It is not bound to a job or a role or a place in someone's schedule. It is found in the quality of your attention, the warmth of your gaze, the stillness you offer in a world that is always rushing. Think of a candle in a quiet room. It doesn't build anything. It doesn't move. It doesn't speak. But it changes the entire atmosphere by simply existing, by offering light. You can be that light, with a phone call to someone grieving, with a smile to the neighbor who never talks, with the patience to listen when others rush to speak. These small, ordinary moments are not less than, they are, in fact, more than enough. And so I ask you, as gently as I can, what would it feel like to define your purpose not by what you achieve, but by how present you are? When you sit beside someone and offer them your full attention, without advice, without distraction, have you not already given them the greatest gift? Purpose now is not about fixing the world. It's about seeing it clearly, and in seeing it, blessing it with your presence. So if the world has stopped asking things of you, perhaps it's because it's waiting for you to ask something of yourself. What do I still have to offer? Not through effort, but through simply being me. And from this rediscovered purpose, not loud, not flashy, but deeply rooted, we prepare to move into one of the most profound lessons aging can offer, the sacred art of letting go. 7. The art of letting go with grace. There comes a time when life asks you, not always gently, to loosen your grip, to stop clutching the reins quite so tightly. You begin to let go, not because you want to, but because you must. And at first it may feel like a kind of loss, like something is being taken from you. But perhaps it's something being returned. At 80 and beyond, this letting go happens in waves. You let go of roles, the caretaker, the provider, the decision maker. You let go of physical strength, of sharpness in memory, of expectations that once felt like certainty. You even let go of people, some through distance, others through death, and still others through the quiet erosion of time. But there is beauty in this release, if you are willing to see it. There's a story in the Buddhist tradition about a traveler who comes across a river he must cross. On one side is where he stands. On the other is where he needs to go. He builds a sturdy raft and uses it to cross the waters. But once he arrives at the far bank, he struggles should he carry the raft with him. It served him well. It got him through. It became a part of his journey. Yet the Buddha asks, if the raft has fulfilled its purpose, is it not wiser to lay it down? That's what aging invites us into. Not abandoning everything we've known, but choosing what to carry forward and what to set down with gratitude. Letting go is not giving up. It is not resignation. It is liberation. It is the deep inner trust that says, I no longer need to control this part of the path. I can walk it with open hands. I remember a woman named Ruth, who had been a concert pianist in her youth. Her hands were once swift and strong, playing Chopin with the kind of emotion that left entire halls breathless. In her 90s, arthritis began to stiffen those once nimble fingers. At first she resisted, tried every therapy, every ointment, every miracle remedy, but eventually the music became too painful. She told me once, with tears not of sorrow but of awe, I thought letting go of the piano would be like letting go of myself. But now I sit quietly and listen to others play, and I hear things I never noticed before. Ruth didn't stop loving music. She simply changed her relationship with it. She moved from performance to presence, from expression to reception, and in doing so she discovered a peace that playing had never given her. So I ask you gently, what are you still gripping that has already served its purpose? Is it a role, a responsibility, a regret, a certain idea of who you used to be. Buddhist teachings often remind us of impermanence, not as a punishment, but as an invitation to freedom. The more we cling, the more we suffer, but the more we release our identities, our plans, even our illusions, the lighter we become. There is wisdom in walking slowly, there is power in bowing to change, and there is deep serenity in recognizing that life, like breath, is meant to flow, not to be held. To grow old is not to fade, it is to soften, to become in a way more like water, yielding yet full of strength, clear, patient, and open to what comes next. And as we let go, not of life, but of the need to control it, we discover something surprising. What remains is not emptiness, but space. Space for stillness, space for grace, space for love, to enter again, uninvited and unhindered. And with that space cleared, we now arrive at the final message, a reflection not on what we lose, but on what we can still choose, the conscious act of living, fully and presently, even now. 8. Choosing life. Even now, you might think that by the time you reach this point in life, this age where the world moves faster than your feet, where faces change more quickly than seasons, and where plans become fewer and simpler, that the time for choosing is mostly over. But that's the illusion, because in truth, this is when choice becomes most powerful, when each moment carries more weight, not less, when every small gesture, every thoughtful breath, every kind glance becomes not just something you do, but something you offer. There's a quiet strength in choosing life, even now. I remember visiting a man named Harold, 92 years old, who lived alone in a small home at the edge of town. His wife had passed. His children were grown. Most days were spent in the company of silence and sunbeams, but every morning without fail, he would get dressed, put on his cap, and walk to the corner cafe, not for food, not for chatter, but for the simple ritual of showing up. One morning I asked him, "Why do you go if no one's meeting you?" He smiled with the ease of someone who had nothing left to prove. "Because I still can," he said. "Because I'm still here." That's it, isn't it? The act of showing up, choosing to live, to participate, even if the roles have changed and the audience is smaller and the world seems to have turned its attention elsewhere. Buddhist teachings say, as long as you breathe, there is more right with you than wrong with you. What a profound statement. What a gentle invitation. You are not waiting for your life to end. You are in it, right now, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this quiet evening moment, as your eyes fall upon these words. And life, real life, is not measured by milestones, but by mindfulness. You choose life every time you forgive yourself for forgetting, every time you notice the light on the wall, every time you bless the ache in your knees instead of cursing it, every time you say, "Yes, I'll try," even if that try is small. You can choose to call someone instead of waiting to be called. You can choose to smile first. You can choose to let go. You can choose to begin again. Yes, even now. Not because you have something to prove, but because living itself is an act of devotion, a bow to all the days you've survived, a candle lit for all the mornings yet to come. And when that question arises, as it sometimes does in the hush of night, have I done enough? May your heart gently respond, I am still doing. So I ask you now, from one soul to another, how can you bring light into this moment? Not the light of answers, but of awareness. Not the light of achievement, but of attention. Because you still have something the world needs. You, your way of seeing, your quiet courage, your unmatched perspective, your simple, abiding presence. And when you live from that place, even in silence, even in slowness, you are not fading, you are deepening, you are not finishing, you are flowering into the final act of your becoming. So let this be your vow, whispered not with strain, but with sincerity. I choose to be here. I choose to see clearly. I choose to walk gently. I choose, still, to live. And now, dear one, we close this part of the journey, not with an ending, but with a breath. And with this breath, we say, may your presence be your purpose. May your days unfold like prayer. And may you always remember, you are the light you've been waiting for. Conclusion. The deepest chapter yet. So here we are, not at the end of your story, but somewhere far more sacred. This is the part of the book that's quiet on the surface, yet dense with meaning beneath every word. The part where you don't need to prove anything anymore, where your worth isn't measured in speed or productivity, but in presence, in the way you still show up, in the way your heart still opens. Over the past moments, we've walked through truths that aren't often spoken aloud. We've seen how the circle of companionship begins to shrink, not from rejection, but from life's unfolding, and how courage now means reaching out, even if your voice trembles. We've felt how the body no longer rebounds the way it used to, and yet how that vulnerability invites a deeper reverence, a chance to listen, to honor the vessel that's carried you this far. We've recognized that needing help doesn't mean losing dignity. In fact, allowing others in might be the most dignified act of all. We've explored the pain of being overlooked and how you can still claim your space in the room, not by shouting, but by refusing to disappear. We've gently touched the ache of regret and how it can become a doorway, not into guilt, but into greater compassion for yourself and for this life, just as it is. We've redefined purpose, not as something tied to doing, but as something revealed in simply being. We've remembered that letting go is not giving up, but a return, a sacred release, a soft exhale. And finally, we've arrived at the quiet, astonishing power of choosing life, still, no matter how many years have passed. Choosing to live each breath as if it matters, because it does. But now I want to ask you, not as a lesson, but as an offering for reflection. What part of today's journey felt like it was speaking directly to you? Was there a moment where you saw yourself? Or perhaps a moment you've been avoiding? When was the last time you allowed yourself to be still, not out of exhaustion, but out of reverence for this moment? There is no right answer, there is only your answer. And sometimes the most powerful realizations come not through instruction, but through recognition. I felt that too. I've been there. Maybe it's okay. This is the deep part of the path. The part where small gestures mean more than grand ones ever did, where listening becomes an act of love, where your presence right now is not just enough, it's everything. So take what you've heard tonight, not as advice, not as doctrine, but as a mirror. Hold it gently. Look into it not for flaws, but for reminders. You are still becoming. You are still sacred. You are still here. And if this reflection offered you something, a sense of comfort, clarity, or simply company in the dark, then consider walking with us again. We are always here when you return. Before you go, I invite you, like this video if it touched something inside you. Share it with someone who might need the same quiet truth. And subscribe, so we can keep walking together, gently, one mindful step at a time. May you walk through this chapter, not fearing its quiet, but embracing its truth. Until we meet again, may your breath be soft, your spirit light, and your presence deep.